Fate is one of the key categories of human culture, the key to which has been tried for centuries by thinkers, sages and philosophers all over the world. Do you believe in fate? As with many other similar issues, humanity is divided into two camps. Some believe that everything is predetermined and each of us is a puppet in the hands of higher powers. Others are convinced that there is no fate and only we create our own lives. In the general understanding, fate is called an inexplicable, incomprehensible set of all events and circumstances that are predetermined, do not depend on the will of a person and have an impact on his life. In simple words, this is something that is bound to happen, which cannot be influenced. This is a kind of unchangeable program written before the birth of man by God, the Supreme Mind, the positions of the stars, the universe and other forces. This is who believes in what. Sometimes fate is called fate, predestination, destiny, fate, karma, the judgment of God. The word fate has several other meanings. It is a kind of personalized or impersonal force that determines everything that happens in life. Surely you have heard such expressions. Fate is a villain, fate decided otherwise, fate hit me hard, leave me to fend for myself, fate's favorite and the like. This is a life path, a fate, a share that has fallen to a person. For example, to tell about your destiny means to describe the chronology of the events of your life. This is the history of the existence and development of something. For example, you can find out the fate of a land plot, track the theatrical fate of an artist, and so on. Or further existence, the future, what fate awaits humanity. Various researchers identify 5 types of fate, depending on what role it plays in people's lives. The first kind, the distributor. In this case, certain forces what this or that person believes in, a religious community or another group blindly, without any logic, distribute life options among all people. Each person gets their share as a result. Such a fate is called fate or destiny. Second, player. Here fate acts as a capricious child or a mocking fortune. It is unknown where her wheel will turn, who will be lucky at one time or another, and who she will make fun of. A person thinks that everything in life is given in one of 2 ways. Either you are lucky or unlucky, or a person is successful in everything, or a constant loser. The third kind, director. In contrast to the previous type, such a fate is rational, logical, and has a clear purpose, a scenario. Everything happens for something and for some reason, there is nothing superfluous or accidental. Each person is the main character in the big play of life. This role is also called a destiny. Fourth, the lender. The most humane type, where the purpose changes to a vocation. A person receives a certain gift and talents on the condition that he uses them competently. If a person goes his own way, realizes the opportunities given to him, follows his vocation, fate is favorable. Fifth, judge. This kind of fate evaluates a person by his actions. In this case, it is customary to talk about certain heavenly laws that are fair to all. They do not necessarily coincide with human laws and codes, and therefore it is often possible to see how the punishment of heaven falls on the righteous, and sinners receive a reward. If the first 3 types almost do not allow free will, then the last 2 types assume that a person builds his own destiny by his actions and following a vocation. At the same time, fate is one of the key and universal categories of human culture, mythology, and religion, describing the relationship between a person and the world around them. It reflects centuries of experience and attempts to identify certain forces that govern the world order and human behavior. In the days of the ancient East, man was considered powerless before fate, which was often associated with the angel of death. In ancient Egypt, it was believed that fate is determined from birth and is expressed in the number of years that a person is destined to live. At the same time, the Egyptians allowed the idea that the gods could reconsider their decisions, showing mercy or disfavor, depending on the way of life of a person. Ancient philosophers and thinkers spread the idea of the personification of fate. So, in Hesiod, this image was represented by 3 goddesses. One was engaged in spinning the thread of life, the second measured it, and the third cut it off. The ancient Romans had fortune, the goddess of luck, chance, and the unpredictability of fate. In the old Russian language, the word god meant share. The Slavs believed that the individual fate of a person is determined at birth and is part of the good that is allocated to all people. That is, it is a certain amount of happiness that is given out from the common cauldron. The pagans believed in predestination, a fate from which one cannot escape, one can only submit. In classical Chinese culture, fate is a predestination that can be followed, or you can evade and change with your own efforts. In other words, human free will is allowed here. The main thing is to behave correctly and well. The pre-Islamic Arabs had 2 ideas about fate. Mana is a specific share for everyone. Darun is an indifferent time that reigns over the whole world. In Islam, these ideas are denied. The modern concept speaks of the absolute will, the supreme justice of Allah, and the divine predestination of every Muslim. In Christianity, fate is treated as the judgment of God, providence. A good creator controls a person's life. The predestination of man is salvation from sin and the revelation of features in the image and likeness of God. As you may have already seen, the concept of fate differs very significantly depending on who and when discussed it. It's the same with karma. This term is one of the central themes of Indian religions. However, there are many different interpretations about it. Therefore, comparing these two concepts will only be an attempt to get to the truth, reflection, and philosophizing. Fate is those events and circumstances that are destined for a person. This is something that cannot be changed. Karma is about what you sow, what you reap. It is the sum of all a person's actions and their consequences, which determine his current life and further reincarnations. From this it turns out that in the generally accepted sense, fate is events and circumstances that do not depend on the will of a person. And karma is something that a person has done himself and is forced to bear responsibility for it. That is, it is the law of cause and effect. The difficulty in understanding karma lies in the fact that a person cannot always keep track of what came from where and what turned into. In addition, according to the karmic concept, the causes may be beyond this life, in past lives. Therefore, it often seems to us that it just happened, fate just ordered it. A little earlier, we discussed 5 types of fate. So, the judge type, it's just very reminiscent of karma. This hypostasis of fate also evaluates a person by his actions and rewards or punishes based on the just laws of the universe. What you sow, you will reap. People have been trying to unravel their fate since ancient times. For example, the Sumerians, the ancient population of southern Mesopotamia, observed the movement of celestial bodies about 3000 years BC. It is believed that they laid the foundations of modern astrology. In India, Babylon, Greece, Rome, and Egypt, the science of predicting numbers was known, which was called arithmancy. Also, at all times there were magicians and sorcerers who used various attributes in fortune-telling practices. Candles, mirrors, dice, stones, wine, various herbs, incense, needles. Many famous rulers turned to the services of fortune-tellers. Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, Napoleon Bonaparte, and others. In the West, Slavic acts of witchcraft trials, compiled in the 16th and 17th centuries, many methods of divination are mentioned. A special kind of fortune-telling among the Eastern Slavs was Yule divination, which took place during the winter Yuletide. They had 2 main themes: divination about the harvest and events in the coming year. Today, many predictive techniques are still practiced. Some of them have even become a trend. For example, astrology. With the help of a natal chart, it is possible to determine the potential of a person at the moment of birth, his character traits, inclinations, abilities, talents. In addition, the stars show in which areas it is most favorable to realize your potential. What are the successful periods for improving certain areas of life? In other words, astrology adheres to the idea that man is the creator of his destiny. We cannot choose the initial data where and when to be born, which parents, but we can influence our lives through decision-making, choices, and behavior. Fortune-telling practices. These are tarot cards, runes, fortune-telling on coffee grounds, and so on. Most often, these tools imply a question and an answer to it. For example, it is believed that the tarot reads information from the general information field, the collective unconscious, that is, from a kind of repository where all the life experience of past generations is located. Palmistry. This is the name of one of the oldest systems of divination by the hand, that is, by the lines, bumps, and appearance of the palms. Proponents of this method claim that in this way you can learn about a person's character, lifestyle, as well as about his past and future. Another way to find out your future is to turn to a psychic, a seer, a healer, a spiritual mentor, or another person with unusual abilities. It is worth noting that the responsibility for this step will lie solely with you. Here we must beware of scammers, who are enough in this area. Swiss psychologist and psychiatrist Carl Jung looked at fate from the following position. If we are not aware of what is happening inside us, then from the outside it seems to us that this is fate. Our life is just a mirror image of our inner content, our thoughts, words, reactions, actions. If we don't see cause and effect relationships, it doesn't mean that we don't influence anything. Of course, there is a certain program that we follow. There are lessons that we must learn for our personal evolution. Fate can be compared to a road. Everything beyond it is inaccessible to us, but inside it, we are endowed with free will. We can go on the left side, we can go in the center, we can go diagonally or zigzag. It turns out that our life is a freedom of choice, limited by the prescribed lessons and tasks. If you follow your program, your life path becomes easier. You develop and move to the next step. If you deviate from the lessons, life guides and prompts, analytical psychology considers fate as a reflection of internal processes that are not realized by a person. These can be traumas, deep-seated conflicts, family scenarios, and the like. Therefore, in order to change your destiny, you first need to study yourself, look into your inner world, explore it, understand it, build a relationship with yourself. Stop complaining about bad luck, people, circumstances, and take responsibility for yourself. As the Athenian philosopher Plato wrote, people tend to blame fate, the gods, and anything but themselves for their disasters. If you often complain about why you need all this, think about why you are given it, what you need to understand and change. Replace condemnation with gratitude. The human psyche tends to focus on the negative. We look for flaws in ourselves, compare ourselves with others, and get upset because we fall short of them in some ways. Notice other people's mistakes and imperfections, criticize ourselves and others. Make it a habit to thank the events in your life, the people who have done something good for you, and even thank you for the bad, because you don't know what it will lead to in the end. Unfortunate circumstances, as it seems to you, can lead to great good in the future. Check the internal compass. Do you have goals, dreams? Are they definitely yours, or are they imposed by someone? Very often we want what is fashionable, or what our parents want for us, what friends advise, and social norms dictate. Devote time to self-development and self-knowledge. Do not limit yourself to the picture of the world that has already developed. Read and listen to other points of view. Push the boundaries of what you have already learned. Go beyond them. Choose and act. There are two ways to live your life. The first is to accept your lot and go with the flow, being convinced that everything is predetermined and nothing can change. The second is to make your own decisions, live actively, according to your conscience and heart. Do not hesitate to express yourself in the world, show talents, realize true dreams. Make mistakes and draw conclusions from mistakes. Set goals and achieve them. Change priorities and opinions. Become a seeker of meanings and ideas.